It usually doesn't happen all at once. It's small things, barely noticeable at first. You wake up and realize there's no rush, no alarm going off, no one calling your name from the other room. You sit at the edge of the bed a little longer than you used to, not because you're tired, but because there's nowhere you have to be yet. You make coffee and notice it stays hot longer because no one interrupts you. Breakfast doesn't feel hurried. The kitchen stays clean longer than it used to. At first, that quiet feels like relief. And then, on certain days, it feels heavier than you expected. Not because you're lonely exactly, but because something familiar is missing. The feeling of being necessary, of having a clear place in the flow of things, of being automatically woven into someone else's day. A woman once told me she noticed it the morning she stopped setting her alarm. She sat on the edge of the bed, sunlight coming through the window, and felt two things at once: freedom and a strange sense of being unclaimed. She said, "I couldn't tell if I was finally resting or slowly being forgotten. Nothing was wrong, but something had shifted." Many older people don't talk about this part. They say they're fine, and in many ways, they are. Life is calmer, less chaotic, but underneath, there's a quiet adjustment happening, an emotional recalibration no one really prepares you for. When fewer people are calling, when roles slowly loosen, when your usefulness isn't constantly confirmed, you start asking questions you didn't have time to ask before. Who am I now, when no one is waiting on me? That question can feel unsettling, not because something is wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. Getting older isn't just about aches or slower steps. It's about learning how to stand when life stops leaning on you. Philosopher Immanuel Kant once said that a person eventually has to become a law unto themselves. When you're young, that sounds abstract. Later in life, it becomes practical. It means learning how to be steady without applause, direction, or constant feedback. It means discovering an inner footing when the external markers fade. That's not easy, but it's deeply human. There are a few quiet, internal things that seem to help people stay grounded as this chapter unfolds. Being alone without feeling abandoned. Being alone isn't new. Many seniors have lived alone for years. What is new is the emotional meaning we assign to it. Two people can live in identical apartments and experience completely different lives. One feels forgotten, the other feels settled. The difference isn't how many people they know, it's how safe they feel in their own presence. I once met a man who lived alone with a small radio he turned on every morning, not for the news, but for the familiar voice. He said it filled the space while he made breakfast. One day, he laughed and admitted he'd forgotten to turn it on and realized the silence didn't bother him anymore. "I think I finally trust myself," he said. "A lot of people spent decades being the glue, holding families together, remembering birthdays, smoothing conflicts, showing up even when they were tired. When that role eases, silence can feel personal, like life quietly moved on without you. But silence isn't rejection. It's space you've never had before. Learning to sit in that space without turning it into a story about worth takes time. It's not something anyone teaches you. Most people were taught the opposite, that value comes from usefulness. Over time, though, something shifts. You realize you can read without checking your phone, drink tea without waiting for a call, sit with your thoughts without immediately needing to escape them. That's not loneliness lifting, that's self-trust forming, giving shape to ordinary days. When work and family schedules disappear, time can blur in surprising ways. Days melt together. Meals happen whenever. Sleep gets uneven. Nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels quite anchored either. One woman described it as living inside a very long Sunday afternoon. That's where small routines matter more than we expect. Making the bed, opening the curtains, walking to the mailbox even when there's nothing inside, eating lunch at roughly the same time most days. These aren't productivity tricks, they're grounding signals. They remind the body and mind that the day has edges. Homes tell stories too. Closets full of clothes from another life. Drawers of letters you haven't opened in years. Objects kept, not because they're useful, but because touching them would mean feeling something you've been postponing. Someone once told me, I kept the box because I wasn't ready to open it. Years later, she realized the box had been quietly asking for attention. Every day she avoided it. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means allowing the present to breathe. When your space feels lighter, your thoughts often do too. Stepping out from other people's expectations. Many seniors spent a lifetime being careful about appearances, family expectations, doing things the right way. Approval once mattered for survival. It made sense. But later in life, carrying everyone else's opinions becomes exhausting. There's a quiet relief that comes when you stop explaining yourself, when you realize you don't need to justify how you spend your time, what you enjoy, or why your life looks the way it does now. A man once laughed and said, I spent years worrying about what people would think. Now I realize most of them were busy worrying about themselves. You don't owe anyone a performance. And when you stop living under other people's eyes, something surprising happens. You start hearing your own voice again. It may be softer than before, but it's clearer, staying loyal to yourself in small ways. At some point, the world stops assigning purpose. That can feel like emptiness or like freedom. Meaning doesn't usually arrive as a grand mission anymore. It shows up in small, ordinary acts. Taking care of your body because it's yours. Reading something beautiful in the afternoon light. Writing a few lines so the day doesn't vanish unnoticed. Watering a plant. Cooking something simple because you enjoy it. One woman said she started putting on lipstick again. Not because anyone would see it, but because it reminded her she still mattered to herself. These aren't trivial habits. They're quiet affirmations. They say, I'm still here. This day counts. You stop waiting for meaning to come from outside. You realize you're allowed to choose it. If any part of this felt familiar, thank you for staying with it. Truly, growing older isn't about becoming less. It's about becoming more honest. When life gets quieter, it isn't empty, it's revealing. If you feel comfortable, share one small thing that gives your day a sense of reality. A walk, a ritual, a habit that keeps you grounded. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone in learning how to live this chapter. I'm grateful you're here.